The slap echoed louder than the jet engines. For a split second, the entire first-class cabin froze. Champagne glasses mid-air, conversations cut short, oxygen masks trembling in their compartments. A billionaire had just slapped a black teenager on a plane at 37,000 feet, convinced that money made him untouchable. He was wrong. 30 seconds later, his empire began to collapse. 7 minutes earlier, Marcus Hayes sat in seat 2A, laptop open, headphones in. 17 years old. Navy blazer, white shirt, backpack wedged under the seat in front of him. He'd been awake since 4 a.m., 2 buses and a train to the airport, all to catch this flight to Stanford for the National STEM Scholar Summit. 3 days. Panels, lab tours, maybe a chance to meet the researchers whose papers he'd memorized. He adjusted his seat back. Just 2 inches. Enough to ease the knot forming between his shoulder blades. The man behind him made a noise. Marcus glanced back through the gap between seats. The man was older, mid-50s, expensive watch catching the overhead light. Gray at the temples. Crisp shirt open at the collar. He was staring at his laptop screen, jaw tight. Marcus turned back around. Put his headphones back in. 3 seconds later, a hand slammed into the back of his seat. "Hey!" Marcus pulled one earbud out, turned halfway. "Sorry, did you need something?" The man leaned forward, voice low and sharp. "Your seat. Put it up." Marcus blinked. He just reclined it a little. "I thought." "I don't care what you thought. Put it up." There was no room for negotiation in the man's tone. It wasn't a request. Marcus hesitated, then reached for the recline button. Before he could press it, the man shoved the back of his seat hard, twice, jolting Marcus forward. "Now." The flight attendant appeared in the aisle, smile professional but strained. "Is everything okay here?" The man didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Marcus. "Just teaching someone about respect." Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. He kept his voice even. "I was just going to put it back up." "Then do it." Marcus pressed the button. The seat moved upright with a soft click. The man settled back, satisfied. He picked up his phone, swiped twice, then made a sound, half laugh, half scoff. He muttered something under his breath. Marcus caught 2 words. "These people." The flight attendant's smile faltered. She glanced at Marcus, opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. She walked back toward the galley. Marcus turned forward. He put both earbuds back in. His hands were shaking slightly. He clasped them together on the armrest, forced them still. For minutes later, the turbulence was mild, just enough to rattle the ice in drinks, make the cabin lights flicker once. Marcus had been staring at the same email for 3 minutes. He wasn't reading it anymore. Just staring. His phone buzzed. A text from his mom. "Landed yet, baby?" He didn't answer. The turbulence hit again. A little harder this time. The seatbelt sign dinged on. Marcus shifted in his seat, trying to find a position that didn't make his back ache. Without thinking, he reached for the recline button. He pressed it. The seat moved back. 2 inches. And that's when everything shattered. The man behind him erupted out of his seat. "Are you fucking kidding me?" Marcus whipped around. The man was standing now, face red, finger pointed like a weapon. "I told you." "Sir, please sit down." The flight attendant was back, hands up, voice urgent. "I told this kid once already." Marcus stood up too, hands raised, palms out. "I'm sorry, I forgot. You forgot?" The man's voice was venomous now. "You forgot, or you just don't listen?" The cabin went silent. Every head in first class turned. Marcus kept his hands visible. Kept his voice calm. "I wasn't trying to disrespect you. I just..." "Disrespect?" The man laughed, bitter, sharp. "You don't even know what that word means." He stepped into the aisle. Marcus didn't move. The man was close now. Too close. Marcus could smell cologne, coffee, anger. "You think because you're on this plane you're somebody?" The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you belong here?" Marcus's throat tightened. He didn't answer. The man smiled. It wasn't kind. "Let me teach you something." And then he slapped him. Open-handed. across the face. The sound cracked through the cabin like a thunderclap. Marcus's head snapped to the side. His cheek burned. His vision blurred for half a second. He didn't fall. Didn't cry out. Didn't move. He just stood there, one hand slowly rising to his face. The entire first-class cabin froze. A woman in 3C gasped. Her champagne glass tilted, forgotten. A businessman in 1D stopped mid-sentence, phone still pressed to his ear. The flight attendant's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And in seat 4B, a man in a Patagonia vest raised his phone. He was already recording. The billionaire, because that's what he was, Marcus would learn later, tech mogul, Forbes list, keynote speaker at conferences, stood there, chest heaving, fists still clenched at his side. He looked at Marcus like he'd just swatted a fly. "Now sit down," he said. Marcus didn't sit. He stood there, hands still on his cheek, eyes locked on the man's face. His voice, when it came, was quiet, steady. "What's your name?" The man blinked. "What?" "Your name." Marcus's voice didn't waver. "I want to know your name." The billionaire's face twisted. "You don't get to." "Sir." The flight attendant finally found her voice. It shook. "Sir, you need to sit down. Now." The man glanced at her, then back at Marcus. For the first time, something flickered behind his eyes. Not regret. Calculation. He looked around the cabin. Saw the phones. Saw the stairs. And he smiled again, thinner this time, colder. "My name," he said slowly, "is Richard Calloway." He said it like it was supposed to mean something. Like it was supposed to make Marcus afraid. Marcus nodded once. He sat down. His hands were shaking again, but he folded them in his lap, kept his breathing even. Richard Calloway returned to his seat. He smoothed his shirt, picked up his phone, opened his email, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. In seat 4B, the man with the Patagonia vest stopped recording. 37 seconds of video. Crystal clear. He looked down at his phone. Looked at Marcus. Looked at Richard Calloway. Then he opened Twitter and pressed send. The flight attendant's name was Claire Martinez. 28 years old, 6 years with the airline. She'd handled medical emergencies, turbulent scares, drunk passengers. But she'd never seen anything like this. She stood in the galley, hands gripping the counter, trying to steady her breathing. The senior flight attendant, David, appeared beside her. "You okay?" She shook her head. "I froze. I just stood there. You intervened. You told him to sit. After." Her voice cracked. "After he hit that kid, I told him to sit." David glanced toward first class. Through the gap in the curtain, he could see Marcus Hayes, still in seat 2A, staring at his laptop screen. The side of his face was red. "We need to file a report," David said quietly. "I know. The captain needs to know. The airline needs to know. And that kid." He paused. "That kid deserves better than what just happened." Claire nodded. She pulled out her phone, opened the incident reporting app. Her hands were still shaking. In the cabin, Marcus hadn't moved. His laptop was open, but the screen had gone dark. He was staring at his own reflection in the black glass. He looked younger than 17 in that moment. Smaller. The woman in 3C leaned across the aisle. Her voice was soft, tentative. "Are you all right?" Marcus turned. Managed a small nod. "Yeah, I'm okay." That was... She struggled for the word. That shouldn't have happened. "It's fine." "It's not fine." Her voice was firmer now. "What he did, what he said, that's not fine." Marcus didn't answer. He turned back to his laptop, pressed a key to wake the screen. The woman sat back in her seat, hands folded in her lap. She looked like she wanted to say more but didn't know how. In seat 4B, the man in the Patagonia vest was watching his phone screen. The video had already been posted for 2 minutes. 3 retweets. 11 likes. He refreshed. 48 retweets. 206 likes. He refreshed again. The numbers climbed. Marcus Hayes. That was the name Claire found when she checked the passenger manifest. Seat 2A. Age 17. traveling alone. She read the notes attached to his booking. There was a flag, academic travel, National STEM Scholars Summit, Stanford University. She looked up from her phone, looked through the curtain towards seat 2A. A scholarship kid. Flying first class because the program had booked it for him. Probably the first time he'd ever sat in a seat like that. And Richard Calloway had treated him like he didn't belong. Claire felt something tighten in her chest. She tapped David's shoulder. Look. He read the notes. His jaw set. Jesus. We need to make sure he's okay. Not just physically. Agreed. David moved toward first class, but Claire caught his arm. Let me, she said. She walked down the aisle slowly, aware of every eye on her. When she reached row 2, she knelt beside Marcus's seat, voice low enough that no one else could hear. Marcus. He looked at her. His face was guarded. I'm Claire. I'm so sorry for what happened. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Can I get you anything? Water. No. Thank you. She hesitated. We've filed a report. The captain knows what happened. When we land, there will be security waiting. You won't be in trouble, I want you to know that. But they'll want to talk to you. Marcus nodded. His throat worked. Okay. Is there anyone you want us to call? Your parents? The program coordinator? Not yet. Claire stayed kneeling there for another moment. She wanted to say something else, something that would make this better. But there was nothing. If you need anything at all, you press that call button, okay? Okay. She stood. As she turned to leave, Marcus spoke again. Claire. She looked back. Thank you. For filing the report. She nodded. Her throat felt tight. Behind them, in seat 3B, Richard Calloway sat with his phone in his hand, scrolling through emails. His face was calm. Unbothered. He had no idea what was happening 3 rows behind him. Richard Calloway was 47 years old. Founder and CEO of Calloway Systems, a cloud infrastructure company valued at $8 billion. Married, 2 kids in private school, house in Atherton, another in Aspen. Board member at 3 companies. Keynote speaker at Tech Summit last year. He'd built his empire on efficiency and control. Systems that scaled. Processes that worked. People who did what they were told. He didn't tolerate disruption. The kid in front of him had disrupted him twice. That wasn't acceptable. So he'd corrected it. Simple as that. Richard opened his messages, typed quickly. Delayed 20 minutes. Still on for dinner. Confirm reservation at 8. He put his phone down. Picked up his scotch. Took a sip. The cabin was quiet now. The turbulence had passed. Everything was back to normal. Richard closed his eyes, leaned his head back. 37,000 feet below him, the video was spreading. The man in seat 4B was named Joel Perkins. Freelance journalist, mostly tech coverage. He'd been heading to Stanford himself for a conference, same reason Marcus was going to the summit, tech innovation, future leaders, all that. Joel watched the video spread in real time. 1,000 retweets. 5,000. 10,000. Comments were flooding in. Who is this guy? Disgusting. Absolute power trip. That kid showed more maturity in 30 seconds than that man has in his whole life. Joel scrolled through the replies, saw someone post a screenshot. A Forbes article from 6 months ago. Richard Calloway, the quiet titan reshaping cloud infrastructure. Joel opened the article. Read the first paragraph. Then he looked up, 2 rows ahead, at the back of Richard Calloway's head. He took another screenshot. Posted it. This is Richard Calloway, CEO of Calloway Systems. He just assaulted a teenager on a flight to San Francisco airport. Here's the video. He hit send. The algorithm took over. By the time the plane began its descent into San Francisco, the video had been viewed 400,000 times. Richard Calloway didn't know. Marcus Hayes didn't know. But Claire Martinez, standing in the galley with her phone in her hand, saw the notifications rolling in. She'd been tagged in a dozen tweets, messages from friends asking if she was on that flight, if that was her airline. She opened Twitter. The video was everywhere. She watched it again, even though she didn't want to. Watched Marcus stand there, calm and still, while Richard Calloway slapped him. Watched the moment of silence that followed. Watched Marcus ask for his name. The comments were unanimous. That kid is a hero. Lock that zo up. This is what entitlement looks like. Claire closed the app. Put her phone away. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. She looked toward first class one more time. Marcus was staring out the window, watching the city come into view. Richard Calloway was asleep. And below them, the world was waiting. The plane touched down at 6:47 p.m. By 6:52, the video had 2 million views. By the time the seatbelt sign turned off, Richard Calloway's phone had 31 missed calls. He noticed the first one as he reached for his bag in the overhead compartment. His wife. He frowned, swiped to call her back, but the call went straight to a busy signal. Strange. He tried his assistant. Same thing. The cabin doors opened. Passengers began filing out. Richard grabbed his carry-on, stepped into the aisle. Marcus Hayes was still in his seat, waiting. Their eyes met for half a second. Richard looked away first. He moved toward the exit, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. As he stepped into the jetway, his phone buzzed. A text from his PR director. Call me now. Not a request. All caps. For exclamation points. Richard's stomach tightened. He walked faster, pushing past slower passengers. When he reached the gate area, he stepped to the side, pressed dial. She answered on the first ring. Where are you? Her voice was sharp, strained. I just landed. What's going? Have you seen it? Seen what? The pause. Then quieter. Richard, there's a video. His mouth went dry. What video? On the plane. You and the kid. A black kid. The words hit him like cold water. Someone recorded it, she continued. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Every major news outlet has picked it up. CNN just posted it 10 minutes ago. Richard's hand tightened around his phone. That's not. There's context. He was. Richard. Her voice cut through. In the video you slap him. That's what people see. That's all they see. I didn't. He stopped. Took a breath. What are they saying? What do you think they're saying? He closed his eyes. We need a statement, she said. Before this gets worse. It's already out there. How much worse can it get? She didn't answer. The silence told him everything. I'm sending a car, she finally said. Don't talk to anyone. Don't post anything. Go straight to the office. I have dinner plans. Cancel them. The line went dead. Richard stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, people flowing past him on both sides. He felt untethered. Exposed. He opened Twitter. The video was the first thing he saw. He watched himself stand. Watched himself lean over Marcus. Watched his hand connect with the kid's face. The sound was worse than he remembered. He scrolled down. Read the comments. Disgusting. This is who runs our tech companies? I hope they throw the book at him. That kid stayed so calm. Respect. Richard's chest tightened. He kept scrolling, couldn't stop himself. Someone had posted his Wikipedia page. His Forbes profile. A list of every company he sat on the board for. Another tweet had a photo of Marcus's face after the slap, red mark visible, eyes steady, with text overlaid. This is what unchecked power looks like. 40,000 retweets. Richard closed the app. Shoved his phone in his pocket. Behind him, someone coughed. Turned. Marcus Hayes stood 10 feet away, backpack slung over one shoulder, phone in his hand. He wasn't looking at Richard. He was looking at the departures board, as if trying to figure out where to go. For a moment, Richard thought about saying something. Apologizing, maybe. Explaining. But the words didn't come. Marcus glanced over, saw him watching. His expression didn't change. He just turned and walked toward baggage claim. Richard stood there for another minute. Then he headed for the exit, toward the black car that was already waiting. Callaway Systems headquarters was a 15-minute drive from the airport. Sleek glass building, minimalist lobby, security that knew him by sight. Richard walked through the doors at 7:34 p.m. His PR director, Natalie Frost, was waiting in the lobby. Mid-40s, sharp suit, tablet in hand. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Conference room. Now. He followed her to the elevator, up to the executive floor. The halls were mostly empty. Everyone had gone home for the day. But the lights were on in the main conference room. Inside, 3 people were waiting: Greg Samuels, General Counsel, Tina Park, Chief Communications Officer, and David Wu, Head of HR. No one smiled when Richard walked in. Natalie closed the door behind them. Seat. Richard sat. Natalie pulled up a screen on the monitor. The video played. 37 seconds. No commentary. Just the footage. When it ended, the room was silent. Greg spoke first. Have you been contacted by law enforcement? No. You will be. Probably tonight. For what? Assault? Battery? Possibly hate crime enhancement depending on what the DA wants to pursue. Richard's jaw tightened. This is absurd. It was a seat-recline dispute that got out of hand. That's it. That's not what the video shows, Tina said quietly. Then the video doesn't show the full picture. The video shows you slapping a minor, Greg said. That's the full picture that matters. David Wu leaned forward, hands folded on the table. The kid is 17. National Merit Scholar. Traveling to Stanford for an academic summit. His name is Marcus Hayes. He's from Oakland. Single mother, public school, full ride to wherever he wants to go. Richard felt something cold settle in his stomach. How do you know all that? Because reporters know all that. It's been published in 6 different outlets in the last hour. Natalie pulled up her tablet, scrolled. Here's what we're dealing with. The video has 5 million views across platforms. Hashtag Richard Calloway is trending on Twitter. So is hashtag Justice for Marcus. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they've all covered it. BuzzFeed published a timeline. The Atlantic just posted an op-ed titled, "The Entitlement of Wealth." She looked up. Richard, this isn't a PR problem. This is a crisis. So what do? We issue a statement, Tina said. Tonight. Full apology. No excuses, no context. Just remorse. I'm not apologizing for defending my personal space. Then you're done, Greg said flatly. Richard stared at him. Excuse me? The board is meeting tomorrow morning. Emergency session. They're going to ask for your resignation. The heir left the room. They can't do that. They can. And they will. Greg's voice was matter-of-fact. You assaulted a minor on camera. The company's stock dropped 3% in after-hours trading. Partners are already asking questions. If you don't apologize, if you don't show remorse, they'll vote you out. Richard's hands clenched into fists under the table. I built this company. And you just put it at risk. Silence. Natalie broke it. We draft a statement. You approve it. We post it in 1 hour. That buys you time. Time for what? Time to figure out if you want to save your career or not. Richard looked around the table. For faces. None of them sympathetic. He thought about Marcus Hayes, standing in the aisle with his hand on his face. Thought about the way the kid's voice hadn't wavered when he asked for Richard's name. And he realized with sudden clarity that the kid had known. Known that giving his name would matter. Known that someone was recording. Known that this moment wouldn't just disappear. Richard had underestimated him. And now he was paying for it. Fine, he said quietly. Draft the statement. The statement went live at 9:17 p.m. I deeply regret my actions on today's flight. I allowed frustration to override my judgment, and I am truly sorry for the harm I caused. There is no excuse for what I did. I am committed to learning from this and doing better. It was posted on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Pushed out through the company's official channels. Within minutes, the responses poured in. Too little, too late. He's only sorry he got caught. Where's the apology to Marcus Hayes by name? This is PR damage control, not real remorse. The statement didn't stop the bleeding. It accelerated it. By 10 p.m., 2 board members had resigned. By 11 p.m., 3 major clients had suspended their contracts, pending review. By midnight, Callaway Systems stock had dropped another 5%. And Marcus Hayes, lying in a hotel room near Stanford's campus, phone on silent, didn't read any of it. He was asleep. The next morning, Marcus woke to 214 notifications. He stared at his phone screen, still half asleep, trying to make sense of the numbers. Text messages from people he hadn't talked to in years. Missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. Instagram followers jumping from 300 to 40,000 overnight. He sat up in bed, opened Twitter. His mentions were flooded. "You're an inspiration. Stay strong, Marcus. We see you. We support you." There were also requests. Interview requests from CNN, MSNBC, local news stations. A message from a literary agent asking if he'd ever considered writing a book. A DM from someone claiming to be a Hollywood producer. Marcus closed the app. Put his phone face down on the nightstand. He wasn't ready for this. His summit orientation started in 2 hours. He was supposed to be thinking about research labs and scholarship applications, not media requests and viral videos. But the world had other plans. Richard Callaway woke at 5:47 a.m. to the sound of his phone vibrating on the nightstand. He'd slept 4 hours. Maybe less. His wife had taken the kids and gone to her sister's place in Marin. "Just for a few days," she'd said. "Until this settles." He'd slept alone in their king bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The phone buzzed again. He picked it up. Saw the name on the screen. Michael Torres, board chair. Richard's stomach dropped. He answered. "Michael. The board is convening at 7. You need to be there." "I'll be there." "Richard." Michael's voice was careful, measured. "I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't a conversation. It's a vote." "A vote on what?" "On whether you remain CEO." Richard sat up, heart pounding. "You can't be serious. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the company and our stakeholders. What happened yesterday was a personal mistake. It has nothing to do with my ability to run this company. It has everything to do with it." Michael's tone hardened. 3 clients pulled their contracts. Our stock is in free fall. The press is camped outside headquarters. And every partner we have is asking the same question. Can we trust Richard Callaway? I issued a statement. The statement made it worse. "Richard, I'm trying to help you here. If you resign now, we can frame it as you taking accountability. If we vote you out, that's a different story." "I'm not resigning." Silence on the other end. "Then I'll see you at 7, Michael said quietly. The line went dead. Richard sat there, phone in his hand, the weight of it all crashing down. He'd built Callaway Systems from nothing. 10 years of 80-hour weeks, missed birthdays, red-eye flights. He'd made people rich. He'd created jobs. He'd changed an industry. And it was all unraveling because of 37 seconds. He stood, showered, dressed in his best suit. If they wanted a fight, he'd give them one. The board meeting started at 7:02 a.m. 8 members in person, 3 on video. Michael Torres at the head of the table. Richard across from him. No pleasantries. No coffee. Just business. Michael opened a folder. We've reviewed the incident, the public response, and the immediate financial impact. The numbers are clear. Since the video was posted, we've lost $7 million in market cap. That's in less than 24 hours. Markets fluctuate, Richard said. Not like this. One of the board members, Sandra Lee, spoke up. She was the founder of a venture capital firm, sharp as they came. This isn't a fluctuation. It's a collapse. And it's tied directly to you. We can recover. Not with USO, Sandra said bluntly. Every client we've spoken to this morning has said the same thing. They're uncomfortable. They don't want to be associated with the brand right now. And by brand, they mean you. Richard's jaw set. So you're going to throw me out because of optics? We're protecting the company, Michael said. That's our job. I built this company. And we're grateful for that. But leadership isn't ownership. You know that. Richard looked around the table. Every face was set. No allies here. If I step down, he said slowly, what happens to my stock? You retain your shares, Michael said, but you'll have no operational authority. The board will appoint an interim CEO while we search for a replacement. And if I don't step down? Then we vote. And if the vote goes against you, which it will, you'll be removed. That's a matter of public record. It will be messy, louder, and it will hurt you more in the long run. Richard's hands clenched under the table. He thought about fighting, thought about lawyers, about leverage, about all the ways he could make this difficult for them. But then he thought about the video, about the look on Marcus Hayes' face, about the fact that no matter what he did, that moment was permanent. He couldn't undo it, and he couldn't outrun it. I'll resign, he said quietly. The room exhaled. Michael nodded. We'll draft the announcement. You'll have a chance to review it before it goes out. When? Today. By noon. Richard stood. Anything else? No, Michael said. That's all. Richard walked to the door. Turn back. For what it's worth, he said, I am sorry. No one responded. He left. By noon, the announcement was live. Effective immediately, Richard Callaway has resigned as CEO of Callaway Systems. The board thanks him for his contributions and leadership over the past decade. An interim CEO will be named within the week. The press release was clinical, impersonal. It didn't mention the video. It didn't have to. The headlines wrote themselves. Texo resigns after viral assault video. Richard Callaway steps down amid growing backlash. Callaway Systems CEO out after slapping teen on plane. Within an hour, Callaway Systems stock ticked up 2%. The market had spoken. Marcus didn't watch the news. He was sitting in a lecture hall at Stanford, notebook open, listening to a professor talk about neural networks and machine learning. Around him, other students scribbled notes, asked questions, leaned forward with the kind of focus that came from genuine curiosity. This was what Marcus had come for. Not the cameras. Not the interviews. Not the overnight fame. Just this. During the break, one of the other students approached him. A girl, maybe 18, with a Stanford hoodie and nervous energy. Hey, she said. You're Marcus, right? He nodded. I just wanted to say, what happened to you was awful. And the way you handled it was incredible. Marcus didn't know what to say. Thanks. I mean it. A lot of people would have lost it. But you didn't. You stayed calm. You asked for his name. She smiled. That was smart. I wasn't trying to be smart. I was just trying to get through it. Well, you did. And now he's gone. Marcus blinked. What? Richard Callaway. He resigned this morning. It's all over the news. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened Twitter, saw the headlines. He stared at the screen for a long time. The girl was still talking, but he wasn't hearing her anymore. All he could think about was the moment on the plane. The slap. The silence. The way Richard Callaway had looked at him afterward, like he was nothing. And now Richard Callaway was the one with nothing. It didn't feel like victory. It just felt heavy. 3 days later, Marcus sat across from his mother in their small kitchen in Oakland. She'd flown back from her shift early when she heard the news, taken a half day without pay, something she never did. She sat there now with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, studying his face like she was looking for cracks. You sure you're okay? She asked for the third time. I'm okay, Mum. You don't have to be. Marcus looked down at his own mug. I know. They sat in silence for a while. The afternoon light slanted through the window, illuminating the small stack of mail on the counter, the calendar marked with her work schedule, the photo of the two of them from his middle school graduation. You've been quiet, she said gently, since you got back. There's been a lot to think about. Like, he shrugged, like, what it means. What happens now? Nothing has to happen, she said. You didn't ask for any of this. I know, but it happened anyway. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. Baby, you did nothing wrong. You hear me? Nothing. I keep thinking, if I hadn't reclined my seat. Stop. Her voice was firm. Don't do that to yourself. You reclined a seat on an airplane. That's not a crime. That's not even rude. What he did, that's on him. Not you. Marcus nodded, but the knot in his chest didn't loosen. Have you talked to anyone? She asked. Besides me? The summit counselor checked in, and a lawyer called. Her eyebrows went up. A lawyer? The airline's legal team. They want to make sure I'm okay. Said I could pursue charges if I wanted to. And? I don't know yet. She studied him. What's holding you back? Marcus was quiet for a long time. I don't want to be the kid who got slapped on a plane. I don't want that to be my story. Honey, that's not your story. Your story is everything you've done. The grades, the scholarship, the summit. That's who you are. But that's not what people see now. Then show them, she said simply. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being you. He looked at her. Is that enough? It's always been enough. Richard Calloway sat in his home office, staring at a blank screen. It had been 3 days since his resignation. 3 days of silence. No meetings, no calls, no schedule to keep. His assistant had been reassigned. His office at headquarters had been cleared out. His access badges deactivated. He was untethered. At first, he'd told himself it was temporary. A cooling-off period. Time to regroup, strategize, come back stronger. But every time he opened the news, every time he scrolled through his phone, he saw the same story. He wasn't coming back. His wife had returned home, but things were strained. The kids asked questions he didn't know how to answer. Friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. The only messages he got now were from journalists asking for comment, or strangers online telling him he deserved worse. He tried to work, opened his laptop, pulled up documents, started drafting ideas for what came next. But the words wouldn't come. The focus wouldn't hold. All he could think about was the moment on the plane. Not the slap itself. The moment after. When Marcus Hayes looked at him and asked for his name. There was something in that kid's voice. Not anger. Not fear. Clarity. Like he'd already seen how this would end. Like he knew in that moment that Richard had just destroyed himself. And he'd been right. Richard closed his laptop. Walked to the window. From here, he could see the hills of Atherton, the sprawl of Silicon Valley beyond. Somewhere down there, Callaway Systems was still running. Still operating. Just without him. The company didn't need him. It had never needed him. That was the part that hurt most. By the end of the week, the story had evolved. It wasn't just about the slap anymore. Reporters started digging. Looking into Richard Callaway's past. And they found things. A lawsuit from 2019, settled quietly, filed by a former employee alleging workplace harassment. The details were sealed, but the filing was public record. A pattern of complaints to HR over the years. None escalated, most dismissed. Difficult to work with, one report said. Demanding and demeaning, said another. An interview from 5 years ago where Richard had made an offhand comment about culture fit in hiring, raising questions about bias in his company's recruitment. None of it was definitive. None of it was proof of anything criminal. But together, it painted a picture. A man who'd always believed the rules didn't apply to him. Who'd operated with impunity because he could. Who'd never faced real consequences. Until now. The press ran with it. Think pieces about tech culture, about unchecked power, about who gets held accountable and who doesn't. Richard's name became shorthand for everything wrong with Silicon Valley. And Marcus Hayes became the counterpoint. The kid who stayed calm. The kid who asked for the truth. The kid who reminded everyone that dignity doesn't require power. He didn't do interviews. Didn't give statements. Didn't capitalize on the moment. He just went back to his life. And somehow, that made the story even bigger. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was in class, AP Calculus, Derivatives, when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. When the bell rang, he checked. 2 missed calls from SFO District Attorney's office. His stomach tightened. He stepped into the hallway, found a quiet corner, called back. A woman answered. Professional. Is this Marcus Hayes? Yes. This is Elena Vasquez from the San Francisco District Attorney's office. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Yeah. We've been reviewing the incident that occurred on your flight last week. We've interviewed witnesses, reviewed the video, and consulted with the airline. Based on the evidence, we're moving forward with charges against Richard Calloway. Marcus's breath caught. What kind of charges? Battery. Assault on a minor. We're also considering enhancement based on the circumstances, though that's still being evaluated. What does that mean for me? It means we'd like your cooperation. You're the victim in this case, Marcus. We need your statement, and we may need you to testify if this goes to trial. Do I have to? Elena's voice softened. No. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. But I'll be honest, your testimony would make this case stronger. A jury hearing directly from you, seeing your composure, understanding what you experienced, that matters. Marcus was quiet. I know this is a lot, Elena continued. And I know you didn't ask for any of this. But what happened to you was wrong. And we have a chance to hold someone accountable. That doesn't happen as often as it should. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. But Marcus. She paused. You don't owe anyone anything. Not the public, not the press, not even us. You do what's right for you. Okay. I'll follow up in a few days. If you have questions, you have my number. The call ended. Marcus stood there in the hallway, students rushing past him, lockers slamming, voices echoing off the walls. He thought about Richard Calloway. About the way he'd smiled after the slap, like nothing had happened. About the way he'd sat in his seat afterward, unbothered, unworried. He'd thought he was untouchable. Marcus put his phone in his pocket and walked to his next class. Richard Calloway learned about the charges from his lawyer. They were sitting in a conference room downtown, third meeting that week. Criminal defense now, not corporate law. Different stakes. Different rules. They're filing battery and assault charges, the lawyer said. Formal arraignment is scheduled for next Tuesday. Richard's jaw set. This is insane. It was a slap. One moment of frustration. It was assault on a minor. On camera. In front of witnesses. The lawyer leaned forward. Richard, I need you to understand something. The D isn't doing this for Marcus Hayes. They're doing this because the whole world is watching. This is a referendum on accountability. And you're the test case. So what do? We negotiate. Plea deal pro. Avoid trial. I'm not pleading guilty. The lawyer sighed. Then you're going to trial. And I'm telling you right now, you'll lose. You don't know that. The video is Exhibit A. 12 jurors are going to watch you slap a 17-year-old kid and then listen to you try to justify it. What do you think they're going to say? Richard didn't answer. The best outcome here, the lawyer continued, is a plea. Reduced charges, maybe probation, community service. You avoid jail time and you move on. And if I fight it? Then you risk a conviction. A record. Real consequences. Richard looked out the window at the city skyline. He thought about his kids. About his wife. About the life he'd built that was already unraveling. Let me think about it, he said quietly. The arraignment was quick. Richard stood in a courtroom, flanked by his lawyers, while a judge read the charges aloud. Battery. Assault on a minor. Maximum sentence. 1 year in county jail, 3 years probation. He entered a plea, not guilty. The media ate it up. Richard Calloway pleads not guilty to assault charges. Tech mogul to face trial for plane incident. Marcus Hayes' case moves forward despite Calloway's denial. The trial date was set for 3 months out. And for the first time, Richard Calloway understood what he was up against. This wasn't going away. 2 weeks before the trial, Richard's lawyer called with news. The DA's offering a deal. What kind of deal? Plead guilty to simple battery. Drop the assault charge. 6 months probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory anger management counseling. No jail time. Richard was silent. Richard, this is a good offer. Take it. And if I don't? Then we go to trial. And you roll the dice. Richard thought about it. Thought about standing in a courtroom while a jury watched the video. Thought about Marcus Hayes testifying. Thought about losing. What do they want from me? He asked. A public apology. On the record. In court. To Marcus? Yes. Richard closed his eyes. Fine, he said. Set it up. The plea hearing was held on a Thursday morning. Marcus wasn't required to attend, but Elena Vasquez called him the night before. The plea's going through, she said. Calloway's taking the deal. He'll be in court tomorrow to formally enter his plea. And he's going to apologize. To me. Just in open court. You don't have to be there, but I think you might want to be. Marcus thought about it. Talked to his mom. Talked to his counselor. And then he decided. He'd be there. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, fluorescent lights humming overhead. A handful of reporters sat in the gallery. Marcus sat in the front row with his mother beside him. Richard Calloway entered through a side door, flanked by his lawyers. He wore a dark suit, no tie. His face was drawn, tired. He didn't look at Marcus. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The proceedings were brief. The charges were read. Richard entered his plea, guilty. The judge accepted it. Then she looked at Richard. Mr. Calloway, as part of this agreement, you've agreed to make a statement. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Richard stood. For the first time, he turned and looked at Marcus. Their eyes met. Richard's voice, when it came, was quiet, steady. Marcus Hayes. I owe you an apology. What I did on that flight was wrong. There's no excuse for it. No justificación. I let my frustration and my ego override my judgment, and I hurt you. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. He paused. Swallowed. You showed more maturity in that moment than I did. And you deserved better. I hope, in time, you can accept my apology. But I understand if you can't. Silence. Marcus sat there, hands folded in his lap, his mother's hand resting on his shoulder. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. The judge spoke. Mr. Calloway, you are hereby sentenced to 6 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Then we're adjourned. The gavel came down. And it was over. Outside the courthouse, Marcus stood with his mother on the steps. Reporters called his name, cameras flashing, but he didn't stop. Elena Vasquez walked with them to the curb. You did good, she said. Marcus nodded. Thanks. What will you do now? He looked at his mother. She smiled. Go back to school, Marcus said. Keep going. Elena smiled. That's exactly what you should do. They said their goodbyes. Marcus and his mother walked toward the bus stop. Behind them, Richard Calloway left through a side exit, escorted by his lawyers, head down, saying nothing. The cameras followed him for a block. And then they turned back to Marcus. 6 months later, Marcus Hayes stood on a stage at Stanford University. Not for the summit this time. For something else. The university had invited him to speak at an event on accountability, justice, and resilience. He'd said no at first. Then he'd thought about it. Talked to his mom. Talked to his counselor. And he'd said yes. The auditorium was packed. Students, faculty, community members. A few journalists in the back. Marcus stood at the podium, index cards in his hand, and looked out at the crowd. He'd written a speech. Rehearsed it. But now, standing here, the words felt wrong. So he put the cards down. I'm not going to talk about the plane, he said. A ripple of surprise went through the room. I know that's why a lot of you are here. But that moment, that 37 seconds, that's not my story. It's a part of it, sure. But it's not the whole thing. He paused, gathering his thoughts. What I want to talk about is what came after. Not the video going viral, or the trial, or the apology. I want to talk about the choice I had to make. The choice we all have to make when something like this happens. He looked out at the audience. You can let it define you. Or you can define yourself. For a while, I didn't know which one I was doing. I kept thinking about that moment. Kept replaying it. Kept wondering what I could have done differently. But here's the thing. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just existing. And someone decided that wasn't okay. That's not on me. That's on him. And once I realized that, I could move forward. not forget, not pretend it didn't happen, but move forward. He smiled slightly. So that's what I did. I went back to school. I focused on my work. I applied to colleges. I kept being me. And that's what I'm here to tell you. If something like this happens to you, if someone tries to make you small, or powerless, or invisible, you don't have to fight back with anger. You don't have to make a spectacle. You just have to keep going. Keep being who you are. Because that's the thing they can't take from you. He looked down at the podium, then back up. Richard Calloway lost his job. Lost his reputation. Lost a lot of things. But I didn't take those things from him. He gave them up the moment he decided I didn't matter. I just made sure people saw it. The room was silent. So yeah, that's my story. Not the slap. Not the video. Just standing here. Still going. Still growing. Still me. He stepped back from the podium. The applause started slow, then built. People stood. Not everyone, but enough. Marcus didn't smile. Didn't wave. He just nodded once, then walked off the stage. In a small apartment in San Jose, Richard Calloway watched the speech on his laptop. He'd been living there for 3 months now. Downsized after the divorce, after the settlement, after everything. His ex-wife had the house. The kids visited on weekends. He had this. He watched Marcus speak. Listened to every word. When it ended, he closed the laptop. He thought about calling someone. His lawyer. His therapist. Someone. But there was nothing left to say. He'd lost. Not because Marcus had beaten him. Because he'd beaten himself. Marcus's mom picked him up outside the auditorium. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Good, I think." "You think?" He smiled. "It went good." She pulled into traffic, heading home. "You proud of yourself?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I am." She reached over, squeezed his hand. They drove in comfortable silence. 3 years later, Marcus Hayes graduated from MIT with a degree in computer science. Summa cum laude. Multiple job offers. A future brighter than he'd ever imagined. He didn't talk about the plane anymore. Didn't do interviews. Didn't revisit the moment. But people remembered. Not because he was a victim. Because he was a reminder. A reminder that dignity doesn't require power. That justice, when it works, doesn't need spectacle. That sometimes, the best response to cruelty is simply to keep being yourself. Richard Calloway faded from public view. His name still appeared in searches, forever linked to that moment. But the world moved on. Marcus did too. And in the end, that was the real victory. Not revenge. Not reckoning. Just resilience. Just life continuing forward. Just Marcus Hayes still going. Still growing. Still himself.